Well, good Monday, Christmas Eve morning. You're watching Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm so glad that you joined us. I am your host, Frank Aiken. We have a lot to cover. Breaking news this morning, and we are going to get to some viewer comments. But Biden has commuted the sentence of 37 federal death row inmates. So he commuted the death sentences of child killers and mass murderers just 2 days before Christmas. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. That is breaking news. That came out very early this morning. Maybe, I don't even think you can say late last night. It was early this morning. Updated at the New York Post at 5 a.m. So that is breaking news. Biden commuting the sentences of 37 death row inmates. We'll take a deeper look into that just after these viewer comments. How about this one? Starting off, I like this one. Frankly speaking, the reason I get up so early every morning, well, thank you. Me too, actually. I received this on late Sunday, and an interesting take, and feel free to weigh in on it. This is from a viewer. Just an observation, Frank. I am not necessarily a religious person, but Christmas has become so commercialized that it makes me sick. Christmas was meant, I think, to mark the birth of Jesus Christ, and not for the giving of gifts. Many have forgotten this fact. I suggest the presents be given on the new year. To me, it seems more appropriate given that it is a new year. But to my point, new gifts for a new year. What do you think? I think there's a lot of kids that would be very upset at you that they'd have to wait another week. It has become, I agree entirely that it's become so commercialized. I mean, when is the first time you start seeing Christmas displays at the big box stores? I mean, sometimes before Halloween. As someone who admittedly waits till the last minute to do their Christmas shopping, I did so mostly all of it yesterday. And yes, commercialized is the perfect word. It is overwhelming. It's not necessarily the Christmas spirit in said stores. Perhaps that's why so many people, unfortunately, for our small businesses, end up going online to avoid that mess. But yes, I couldn't agree more that it is commercialized. People do think about it as, I mean, you see some of these people with so many gifts, they don't even remember what they got, put it away somewhere, and I forgot I got that 2 years ago. So yes, I would agree with that part. I'm not sure about moving the gifts to New Year's Day, though I wouldn't be opposed to it. I hadn't really thought about it. Does make sense. New year, new gifts. So thank you for that comment. Something a little different. What are your thoughts out there? Next up, a comment from a different viewer. They scrutinize Trump even more, or every move, They scrutinize Trump's every move for his entire presidency. In fact, it started while campaigning. They never let up, and they question everything. But the incoming can't do the same. Yes, meaning, question Biden, question I guess right from the beginning that we learned from day one, the White House realized how much he was in mental decline. And we do have a couple updates on that. Not updates, but some really interesting opinion pieces I hope to get to later on. So that's a good point. Now, this person wrote, technically the show is still on at 7:59 on Friday. But again, I missed it. So this viewer saying, I highly doubt the shutdown will happen. Well, you were spot on. Speaking of which, in case you did not hear from our congressman, I know this is a little late because this happened on Friday, but Congressman Langworthy did vote to pass the American Relief Act, as it's known, issuing the following statement. I proudly voted to pass the American Relief Act, standing with President Trump to keep our government open, ensure our troops continue receiving their paychecks, support our hardworking and financially strained farmers, and provide disaster relief to communities devastated by hurricanes. I remain committed to expanding access to telehealth services and pursuing much-needed reforms to hold pharmacy benefit managers accountable, ensuring lower prescription drug costs for all Americans. As we approach 2025, I am focused on delivering real results for the people of New York's 23rd District and advancing President Trump's America First agenda to secure a brighter future for our nation. So thank you to Congressman Langworthy for passing that statement along. And to that viewer, congratulations. You were right about the government shutdown. I had a feeling, but boy, I wasn't sure because it became so time sensitive. It became almost insurmountable how little time they had. But they got it done. There is some pushback on Speaker Johnson. It doesn't look good, if I'm being honest, for Speaker Johnson. Some calling for him not only to not run again, to step down. Now, the vote is on January 3rd, so I think that's a little bit of wishful thinking from the Mike Johnson haters. But it'll be interesting. Do you think Mike Johnson will be returning as Speaker? I see that being kind of a messy fight right off the jump. But stranger things have happened. I think Speaker Johnson has done a very good job in the position he was in. I think he seriously miscalculated on that first continuing resolution. He did not realize that Trump does not start on January 20th, that he started, in his mind, at least November 5th, and that things needed to change as soon as possible. And I think he miscalculated that and did things the way things have always been done in Washington. Maybe muscle memory, if you will. And because of that, he has received quite a backlash, and we'll see how that all plays out. It'll be an interesting start to the new year. Okay, so as I mentioned, the breaking news this story, President Biden is commuting the sentences of nearly all the inmates, listen to that, nearly all the inmates on federal death row. A move that comes not even 2 weeks after he went through, quote, the largest single-day grant of clemency in American history. I guess this is going to be his legacy. Maybe he's doing all this in hopes that it will create a scenario where people forget that he, after repeatedly lying, that he wouldn't, pardoning Hunter Biden. Of the 40 inmates on federal death row, Biden is commuting 37 men sentenced to death, reclassifying their sentences to life without the possibility of parole. I've got to say, when you see what some of these 37 men did, I can't imagine what those 3 people that didn't get this clemency, what they did. Okay, here it is. Thank you, Fox News, for giving us that information. The 3 inmates not included are Robert Bowers, who was responsible for the mass shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue in 2018, which left 11 people dead. Dylan Roof, a white supremacist who killed 9 black parishioners at Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina in 2015. And I can't remember how to say his name. Doskar Sarnev, who worked with his now dead brother to perpetrate the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing that killed 3 people and injured hundreds. So those are the 3 that are still technically on death row. Now the other 37 that are on death row, no longer on death row, but now serving life sentences without the possibility of parole. The men being resentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole are convicted of various murderous acts against one person or multiple people. Among the victims of the 37 men are law enforcement officers, children, and other inmates. A handful of men on the death row were also said to be executed with their co-defendants. Biden, who only supports the death penalty at the federal level for terrorism and hate-motivated mass murder, said the move will prevent President-elect Donald Trump's administration from carrying out the execution sentences that would not be handed down under current policy and practice. That's according to the statement released by the White House. I mean, okay, first thing to keep in mind is the timing of this. Doing so in hopes that it will be buried by the media. This is not typically a time where there is a lot of news, or there is, but you've got people normally on vacation, meaning the anchors and the hosts, and you've got fill-ins, or you've got not really a newsroom that's dogged because they, like you, are thinking about their Christmas plans. Then you also have a viewing population that is not always in viewing mode either. You're in the Christmas spirit. You're wrapping your presents. You're getting ready for the big day. Perhaps you have on Christmas music and are not watching the news. So the timing is very important, in hopes to not get the backlash that this would rightfully deserve. Well, the president declared a moratorium on federal executions after taking office in 2021. So this is another way to hinder Trump's decision-making. We actually have a piece I'm going to get to later on. I think it was Politico, begging federal workers to try to gum up the works in any way possible from the inside. You know, the deep state that we talk about, or the swamp, admitting it essentially by saying, well, all you federal bureaucrats, you nameless, faceless bureaucrats who the American people didn't vote for, try to hinder the plans of the person that the American people overwhelmingly voted for. We'll talk about that later on as well. It's going to make you upset. But we're not going to go through all 37 federal death row inmates that had their sentences commuted, and not to mention, because as we mentioned with the Christmas spirit, some of these stories are so heinous, so horrific, that we would not want to dive into that at 6:10 this morning. As of December 13th, Biden has pardoned a total of 65 individuals and commuted sentences for 1,634 inmates during his time as president. So that is before, that says as of December 13th, so we add those 37 today. That is shocking. Biden says he does not condemn the murderers and their despicable acts, and he grieves for the victims and families who have suffered unimaginable and irreparable loss, but he cannot stand back and let a new administration resume executions that I halted, he said. It also said Biden will use the last few weeks of his presidency to, quote, provide meaningful second chances and review additional pardons and commutes. Wow, that is shocking. Biden commuting the sentences of nearly all the inmates on federal death row. You have mass murderers, you have child killers, all having the death sentences taken off the table. Here we are on Christmas Eve, I guess an early gift to these mass murderers, child killers. At least five child killers, folks. Biden gave the reprieve to the nation's most violent murderers, 9 of whom were found too dangerous to live after butchering fellow inmates, as part of his efforts at, quote, ensuring a fair and effective justice system. Make no mistake, I condemn these murderers, grieve for their victims of their despicable acts, and ache for all the families who have suffered unimaginable and irreparable loss, Biden said in a statement. But guided by my conscience and my experience as a public defender, Chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Vice President, now President, I'm more convinced than ever that we must stop the use of the death penalty at the federal level. In good conscience, I cannot stand back and let a new administration resume executions that I halted. I don't want to go through the horrific details, the murders, the sexual assaults, et cetera, et cetera. You can find that for yourself in various news outlets this morning. That is apparently Joe Biden's legacy on his way out the door, and his Christmas gift to mass murderers, child killers, etc. So that's the breaking news this morning. We've got to take a short break. I say, hey, I didn't know if we were going to have a big audience this morning, but it looks like we are. Thank you for the waves. Thank you for the comments. I am live from the Hesselson studio. In the next segment, we're going to go through a couple things. I don't know really how to segue, so we're going to just breeze through a couple things before we start getting in the nitty-gritty. We can talk more about Biden. I probably will be mentioning it because it is breaking news throughout the program. So stay with us. We're just getting started. Just get warmed up because it is cold. Stay with us. We'll be right back, frankly speaking, here on WYDC TV. Big Fox.
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
In 18 months, Bath Planet has given away 3 dream bathroom makeovers, and now it's your turn. It's our absolute pleasure to announce Dream Bathroom Giveaway 4. On March 3rd, one local family is going to get a dream bathroom makeover for free. Whether you want a tub to lounge or a walk-in shower for accessibility, Bath Planet is excited to give away our 4th free bathroom makeover. Enter now by scanning the QR code or stopping by either of our 2 locations.
I'm Marion Crawford. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is feels like I'm on the Carson show with that kickoff with this new song. Wishing you a Merry Christmas. I do. I wish all of you a Merry Christmas. Thank you to Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. There's our roof cam on this chilly morning. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. So many comments. I wasn't sure this morning if you were going to be tuning in, but I'm so glad that you did. Let's go through some of the comments. Didn't Biden make the law that included the death penalty for federal crimes? Well, it says here that he halted it when he was elected president, or, when he was sworn in 2021. Now, I'm not sure if you're talking about in reference to his time in the Senate, perhaps. I'm not sure, but it sounds as if now his position is to end the death penalty. And if you are just joining us this morning, Biden commuted the death sentences of child killers and mass murderers 2 days before Christmas. So think of this. This is a gift to these murderers and doing these horrendous, despicable things. Think of at this holiday season, here we are, Christmas Eve, 2 days before Christmas. And heaven forbid, think of these families and what they're going through. Think of how their Christmas, their holiday season just turned out on this Monday morning. It's something I'm sure they think about every day of the year, but especially at the holiday season. And then to have the President of the United States commute the sentences so that that person that did whatever despicable act to a family member, a loved one, a friend, now being given this gift of just life in prison as compared to execution. Your thoughts and prayers go out to those families. It must, their holiday season ruined by the swipe of a pen. Moving on, another comment from a different viewer. The president's death row inmates' decision to commute the sentences is not rational thinking, especially in his weakened state of mental acuity. It's a good point. His advisors should start advising him. I will say, unfortunately, I think they are. I think this is just a kind of radicalization of the people around him. Because to your point, we're going to get to it a little bit later on in the program, they knew from day one that he had this issue with mental acuity. So who's really been making these decisions? As this viewer goes on to say, basically, he wasn't up all night looking over the names of what they did. This was people, advisors around him. I have a feeling somebody just slid that commuted sentence in front of him. He just blindly signed. I doubt that he was up all night thinking about doing it. I agree. I think this shows the radicalization of the people pulling the strings behind the scenes. the real decision makers, because that's apparently what we're learning from that Wall Street Journal piece that broke last week. Of course, after the election, after he was clearly no longer the candidate either. That's when the media starts to do their exposés about his mental health. But remember, and there's great video, you can find it at Fox News this morning, of showing all these talking heads in the media saying, how dare you question his mental health? He's sharper than ever. It's laughable if it weren't so serious, because here we are, December 23rd. You have to remember that Joe Biden is still president of the United States. They have a piece out this morning, and this is not to scare you as we enter Christmas, and you have to be careful about these types of stories because we are not trying to ruin your holiday. But weakened Iran, this is coming from the Telegraph, a weakened Iran could hit back with a nuclear bomb, Trump was told by the White House. Iran could move to build a nuclear bomb after being weakened by wars in the Middle East, the White House has warned the incoming president. Joe Biden's national security advisor said he had briefed the incoming president on the risk of Tehran obtaining the weapons. It comes as Mr. Trump is reportedly considering airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities when he becomes commander-in-chief again. Good thing, well, it's a perfect name, telegraph. Good thing we're telegraphing our punches and saying to Iran what we might do. Remember, Trump not being sworn in until January 20th. A lot of time, unfortunately, a month almost, a little under, before Trump takes office. Now we see a president in office now with issues with mental acuity. A lot can happen, unfortunately, in a month, so it makes you concerned. But I'll continue because I thought this was a good comment from the viewer. It sounds like a plot from Batman when the Joker pardons all the criminals. It does. A bad episode where at least Batman would round them up. Not in this scenario. But yes, a weakened president and, again, a weakened Iran could hit back with a nuclear bomb. You wonder if China is going to make any moves towards Taiwan. I actually thought they would before Biden was out the door. Like I said, plenty of time left for some of these things, and that's concerning. Comment from a different viewer. Merry Christmas, Frank. Well, hey, Merry Christmas. Thank you for being a guiding light. Thanks, Joe and Watkins Glen. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you and yours, and to everybody watching. But that's a very nice comment, and I do appreciate it. We have a lot of fun on the program here. We're going to have a blast going into the new year. 2025 is going to be exciting. I know many people, and this has been my whole career, doing this type of thing, where people will say, uh-oh, now elections are over, you're not going to have anything to talk about. Well, I think if anything proves that not to be the case, that is this morning with President Biden commuting the death sentences of child killers and mass murderers just 2 days before Christmas. It's stories like that. Trump over the weekend nominating so many people to different positions. We also, trust me, there's always going to be news. And there's always going to be news to cover, and we're going to do it the best we possibly can here on Frankly Speaking every weekday morning. But yes, if you are just waking up, Biden commuting those death sentences of nearly everyone, 37 of 40 men on death row have now had their sentences commuted. We can talk more about that. I'd love to hear your opinion on it. We've talked about kind of this weird culture that we're in right now. And I think a lot of it does stem from college campuses. And like I said, please bear with me because I'm not going to be able to segue into some of these. Where you have the radicalization on college campuses has led to this anti-Semitism becoming more mainstream. And then I don't know if you saw, and I don't blame if you didn't, but on Saturday Night Live over the weekend, on the weekend update segment, I'm not sure who that, Colin Jost, he had mentioned Luigi Mangione in a setup to a joke. As soon as he mentioned his name, it prompted raucous cheers from the audience in that woke crowd, and that, trust me, that is a very left type crowd. Jost even seemed surprised by the response, awkwardly glancing off stage, smirking in a way, awkwardly smiling is maybe a better term, while sarcastically quipping to the audience, yeah, definitely woo. I hope you're wooing for justice, right? So that is a new, just mentioning to you in passing, and kind of ties in with the commuting of these death sentences, this making, because there's such a hatred for healthcare providers, making Mangione a folk hero in a way, a sex symbol in many instances. Because that mentioned there on Saturday Night Live that he all those woos came from mostly women. Speaking of this kind of radicalization, I said they're not a good segue. There's a new movie about Superman. I know there's all these action movies or superhero movies, and I think they're kind of suffering a little bit at the box office. Well, this is so tedious. The new film, Superman. The director, James Gunn, claims that the trailer where Superman seems to be kind of fragile, hurt. The director, James Gunn, claims that represents the current condition of the United States. The first teaser trailer includes a scene with a broken, battered, and bloodied Superman lying prone in the snow before being rescued by Krypto, the super dog. The scene might feel like an odd choice to incorporate into the first big trailer for a highly anticipated Superman movie, but according to Gunn, there's a broader metaphor at play. Somebody's a little bit too big for their britches here. Speaking at a press conference at the launch of the trailer, Gunn explained, quote, "We do have a battered Superman in the beginning. That is our country. I believe in the goodness of human beings, and I believe that most people in this country, despite their ideological beliefs, their politics, are doing their best to get by and be good people. Despite what it may seem like to the other side, no matter what that other side might be. This movie is about that. It's about the basic kindness of human beings, and that it can be seen as uncool and under siege by some of the darker voices and are some of the louder voices. I'm excited for people to get to see the essence of what we're doing because it's really been like the private secret that we've all been hoarding." Okay, think about this. How full of yourself you are. You're making a superhero movie. It's been done a million times. Superman, of course. And I literally read you the scene is Superman being rescued by Krypto the super dog. And this guy wants to put in metaphors as if he's James Joyce or something, where you've got to read between the lines and see a battered America. I know, I said I can't segue, but that bothered me this morning. All right, we're going to go through some media updates. As I mentioned, Politico urging federal workers to resist Trump. If you want to talk more about Biden commuting the death sentences of child killers and mass murderers 2 days before Christmas, we can talk about that as well, but we need to take a break. We're running just a little late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Hustling plus overbooked, plus bustling, plus cleaning overlooked. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's. Relax. It's done. Hustling, plus too busy, plus bustling, plus in a tizzy. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's. Relax. It's done.
Shop and compare. Shop and compare.
Shop and compare.
Times may change, but one thing stays the same.
Shop and compare.
You won't find a better deal. Guaranteed.
Shop and compare.
Come sit and sleep shop in Corning. Shop and compare.
Hot tubs, hot tubs, hot tubs. Final 4 days of the year at Hesselson's Arnott Mall location near Center Court this Thursday through Sunday. No reasonable offer refused. Plus, 0% interest-free financing options for up to 60 months. And free delivery and takeaway of your old hot tub. Save $1,000, $3,000, even $5,000 off Hesselson's already low prices on their American Whirlpool hot tubs and swim spas. Why wait? Everything must be sold. Come in early for the best selection and start making every day better. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
It's a new season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox. The Big Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. We were talking about Biden commuting those death sentences. So now 37 of 40 death row inmates are no longer on death row, but have received an early Christmas gift. They are now on life without a possibility of parole. You think of those families, the friends, the loved ones of the victims of these mass murderers, child killers, and how their Christmas just shaped up on this Monday morning. Getting that phone call, probably learning it like we did from the news, I would assume. So sad. Hey, let's talk about the news for a moment. Less than a week after a 15-year-old girl shot and killed 2 at a Madison, Wisconsin Christian school, CNN went all in to shame fathers who go out and buy hunting rifles for their sons. This should come as no surprise. Remember, they'll always say, hey, we understand the Constitution, and we understand you have a right to hunt. Well, no. Doesn't say that. We have a right to bear arms, right? So that's a clear difference. But they always throw in the, hey, I used to hunt, or I like to hunt, so I totally understand. It's a special moment between father and son, or father and wife, or father and mother and kids and all that. But they'll always say that they're big fans of hunting, which obviously the Constitution has nothing to do with it. But now you see them turning on hunters as well. Now, it is also weird because you have Biden calling for a ban on assault rifles, which whatever the definition of assault rifle is, we're not sure. But having said that, we know that at that shooting in Wisconsin, that was handguns that were used. But CNN reported that the origins of the 2 handguns in the girl's possession have been traced but cannot be made public at the time because of the ongoing investigation. So 6 days after the heinous shooting, CNN rolled out a piece targeting parents who buy their sons or daughters firearms with which to hunt. Now, I know many of you are hunters. We've heard great stories from over deer season. I know many special memories with people with their father, their mother, their grandfather, whoever was the hunters in the family, those memories that you'll cherish and remember forever. But CNN began the article with a story of an Oregon dad, Paul Kemp, who bought a hunting rifle for his son Nathan when he turned 16 years old. Nathan had been hunting with his dad since he was 7 years old. CNN then stated, and I quote, "Parents looking to purchase a firearm for their child for the holidays have to balance their hopes for the gift with the risks that come with such a purchase, such as an accidental shooting, suicide, or the gun being used in a crime." CNN said, for example, the teenage school shooting suspect in Oxford, Michigan, and Winder, Georgia, allegedly used firearms they had received as Christmas gifts from their parents, and those parents have faced criminal charges. So, of course, they're trying to scare you away from buying your child or your grandchild a hunting rifle so that they can make those precious memories of hunting with their family. CNN did not mention that the gun used in the Oxford incident was a handgun, not a hunting rifle, and the gun in the Winder incident was a gun the father gave the son while allegedly not monitoring the son's access to it. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation noted that the charges against the father stem from the father knowingly allowing his son to possess a weapon. Now, CNN concluded the article by repeating the false claim that guns are the leading cause of death for U.S. children. This statement has been pushed by President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and numerous Hollywood leftists. The claim is based on numbers which include people of voting age 18 and 19-year-old as children. Trying to guilt you into not purchasing that hunting rifle for your son or for your daughter this Christmas. We see the activism in the media. There's a reason why, as I reported quickly at the end of the program on Friday, that people like Joy Reid, what's her first name? Susan Rule? Full disclosure, you can tell I probably don't watch too much Stephanie Rule, MSNBC. I reported at the end of the program on Friday that they had to slash the salaries of Joy Reid and Stephanie Rule at MSNBC. They did slash Rachel Maddow's pay, but she's still making way too much for a once-a-week show. Paid $25 million for once-a-week show, folks. She was being paid $30 million. But MSNBC personalities Joy Reid and Stephanie Rule were reportedly taking pay cuts if they want to remain with the network as the ratings plummet. So if you want to stay in that anchor chair, you're going to have to take a pay cut. The network's ratings took a staggering, listen to this, 50% nosedive after Trump won in November. And if you look at the way Joe Scarborough handled it, I don't think that lended to their credibility amongst leftist circles. On top of that, MSNBC President Rashida Jones is rumored to be planning an exit from the network. Journalist Oliver Darcy said, citing unnamed sources. Brian Stetler later said he confirmed the rumors with 2 other sources, though a spokesperson for Jones denied them. Currently, Joy Reid makes $3 million per year, and Rule makes $2 million. It's unclear if they will accept pay cuts to keep their respective shows. There's not too many other outlets for them, though. With that far left, especially Joy Reid and some of the hateful rhetoric that she's pushed through the years. But that ties in with what we're going to bring to you next, which is about Politico urging federal workers to resist Trump, kind of that deep state swamp that they always laugh at you for suggesting exists, this alleged, they'll say, or the conspiracy theory idea that there's a swamp or a deep state. And then what do they point to here? They're telling that exact deep state, the nameless, faceless bureaucrats that you did not vote for, that they have to, quote unquote, resist Trump. We're going to talk about that when we come back. I see some comments coming in. Thanks for joining us on this Monday morning. This is a live show, obviously. Tomorrow, we're going to just give you an update. As is scheduled right now, we're going to rebroadcast the telethon, the Salvation Army telethon, just because it was fun and we had some great guests and kind of get you in the Christmas spirit. Then on Christmas Day, we're going to take the music from last year's telethon and this year's telethon. We're cutting, I think I only missed out on two songs, didn't have enough time, but it's going to be all music, all Christmas morning here on Frankly Speaking, both 2 hours. So, put us on in the background as you open your presents or you make breakfast, depending on what time you do all those things. That's going to be on Christmas. And then the day after Christmas, we do have one other day off. And so that's going to be a rebroadcast from a classic edition of Frankly Speaking. But we'll be back live Friday with special guests. I actually have, we'll be talking about the Rockwell Museum and their Gingerbread House campaign, because that goes on now through the 31st, excuse me. I believe it's the 31st. So you still have an opportunity to vote, and we'll learn all about that. That's on Friday. We'll be talking with Willa Vogel from the Rockwell Museum. And then on Monday, Andy Petros will be joining us. He's going to tell us about a campaign he started. No. Is that this? I think that's this Monday. Maybe I should tell you that. But I'll tell you that Andy Petros is going to join us on the program one of these days. And he's going to tell us about this campaign he started to get people to run for local office at a time when some boards at the Village of Odessa begging people, essentially saying we're going to have to dissolve the village, because they just don't have the support. Nope, I'm sorry, I misspoke. That's not till the 6th. We're going to be talking to him on the 6th because his event's coming up on the 8th. It's a class where you learn how to vote or how to run for local election. All right, if you are just joining us this morning, Biden has commuted the death sentences of 37 federal death row inmates in his final month in the presidency. And remember, folks, he's still got about a month left. A lot more damage can be done. But here, right before Christmas, victims' families and friends having to live with this, that the murderers, child killers, that they are no longer on death row but will serve life in prison, get to live out their life, the lives that their victims were not able to live out. All right, we got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
It's hard to explain what this feels like. Moving piles of earth, towing up to 4,000 pounds, cutting millions of blades of grass. We could keep trying to put it into words, but nothing compares to experiencing it for yourself. You just have to get in the seat.
It's the Black Friday sales event at Lindsay Equipment. Get 0% financing for 60 months on in-stock gators, zero-turn mowers, and compact tractors.
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
Are you or someone you love at risk of falling in the home? Did you know 80% of home falls happen in the bathroom? If you are still stepping over a tub to take a shower, please call Bath Planet for a free design service. Our certified design team will take all the measurements and work with you to design a bathroom that never has to sacrifice style for safety. Go with the company that people trust. Bath Planet, 2 locations serving the entirety of the Twin Tiers. Call today.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Give them a call today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street. So many people tuned in this morning. Thank you. If you are just waking up, Biden, with that breaking news this morning, I'm going to be repeating this throughout the show because it is breaking, that he has commuted the death sentences of 37 of the 40 men who are on death row. They are now in prison for life without the possibility of parole. So that's where we stand this morning. This comes after the fact he already had all those sentences that he commuted and pardons, and I guess this is his legacy on his way out the door. Obviously, this is going to be scandalous, and that's why the timing, hoping that it gets buried in this news cycle because it is Christmas. A lot of people not paying attention, a lot of fill-in anchors and people like that. So a calculated effort of when he did it. Don't think that isn't the case at all. But also think of the damage and what that does mentally and spiritually and physically for these families of the victims, having to live through this, as I'm sure they do every single day of their life. But now during the Christmas season and having that looming over their head now of when they think of the holiday season. Okay, we have a comment from Ken. Hey, Ken. On Meet the Depressed, the political graph guy, Steve Kornacki, did a presentation on how the country was deeply divided. The biggest thing he was pushing was that counties where a large percentage of voters graduated high school and attended college overwhelmingly voted for Democrats. And counties where large percentages of voters didn't graduate high school and didn't attend college overwhelmingly voted for Republicans. While the show's focus was on how divided a country we are and how we need to fix the issues and work together, the message they were sending was very clear and very divisive. Smart people vote for Democrats and stupid people vote for Republicans. Now, I have a different take on it. The longer people are in the school system and college, the more time teachers and professors have to propagandize them to believe in liberal socialist thinking. I think you're right on that, Ken. When you spend all that time in college campuses and it's all yes men around these professors. Remember, there's very few students, and I do not knock them for this. There's very few students that are willing to rock the boat and put in an article or a paper or something on a test that says, I'm conservative, my values are conservative, or I think Reagan was a great president, or I think Trump was a great president and will be this next time. If you say that, you could fail, not just be a social pariah amongst your friends, no longer invited to the parties, but also your professors will very often punish you. So I don't knock those students that don't dare take that chance. I mean, it's unfortunate. That's the hand they've been dealt. But if you're around that nonstop, and the people that are supposed to be almost like parent figures in their mind, which are the professors and the faculty, are lecturing you nonstop about liberal beliefs and this radicalization, as we've clearly seen, yes, I'm with you. I think that's why they have been propagandized. I agree with you, Ken. I think that's overhyped too, about this idea where it's lower educated. I think they push that narrative. It's very much the narrative, well, you didn't vote for Harris because you just don't get how smart she is. That was the big thing they said about Al Gore. People don't like Al Gore because he's just too smart. They don't understand how smart he is. It is such a, it's like that old joke that, when you're applying for a job and they ask you what your biggest weakness is, and everybody always says, I work too hard, or I try too hard. It's that kind of idea. That they're just too smart. You just don't get it. Harris was really talking over your head. Al Gore was talking over your head. The dumber people, as Biden called them, garbage people in this country just aren't smart enough to understand the brilliance of the Democrat Party. I mean, really, this is their mindset. And they look down on you, they laugh at you, they think of you as a rube, or as Obama called you, a bitter clinger, clinging to your Bibles and your guns, or you're a deplorable, as Hillary Clinton said. You see a theme here? Deplorable, as Hillary Clinton said, or that you're anti-woman, you're un-American if you vote for Republican, as Governor Hochul said, which we have a quick story on Hochul here in just a little bit. But you see a common trend here, and that's what we're dealing with. So I couldn't agree more, Ken, that this is an example of where they're trying to suggest that you're stupid if you voted for Trump. They just called, essentially, the overwhelming majority of voters in this country stupid, rubes, hillbillies. I mean, because that's truly what they believe. Look at how much they were trying to play to that kind of rube crowd with, remember, we had camouflage hats that said Harris and Walls, and there's Walls embarrassing not knowing how to load his gun, and et cetera, et cetera. But they have a stereotype of who you are, because in their circle, in their bubble, everybody's so smart and everybody voted for Harris. That must mean the common Trump voter doesn't even get it. They're just not smart enough to realize how brilliant the Democrat Party is. So thank you for that, Ken. And I do have to take another short break. I promise you I'm going to bring up that Politico article. There was something on that, too, and I don't know where it was. That kind of ties in with what you were saying. Here it is. This ties in with what you were saying. Then we'll get to the Politico story when we come back. But it's about who doesn't want to talk to family for political reasons. What party does that the most? We're going to talk about that according to a new survey, because yes, it is that time of year, just like at Thanksgiving, where the media tells you, this is how you deal with your crazy Trump supporting uncle, or this is how you deal with anybody that supports Trump. And we had Whoopi Goldberg saying, and a psychologist was on The View saying, don't talk to your family. This is just too important. Don't talk to your family if they voted for Trump. Don't go to that holiday party. And that's what, I'll just take my break a little bit later. Democrat voters are more likely than Republicans to cut down on time spent with family members due to political differences. That's according to a new survey. That should come as no surprise. There's that new social media app, I can't remember the name of it, it's not Blue something, that the left is going to, because they want to be in their bubble. Trust me, the left, just like on college campuses, they want to be in their bubble. They don't want anybody challenging their beliefs. They don't want anybody making them think about politics or making them think why Trump is so popular. They just want to hate the orange bad man and have everybody in their group do the same thing. So that's why they don't want to go see family members who may have voted for Trump or have a political leaning that's different than theirs. But the Public Religion Research Institute posted on December 13th that their survey found that as the holidays approach, Democrat voters, 23%, are nearly 5 times as likely as Republican voters, at 5%, to say they will be spending less time with certain family members because of their political views. The president and founder of Public Religion Research Institute told Axios, quote, "It may be tense around the Hanukkah and Christmas table. It's not just that we're disagreeing about abortion or we're disagreeing about taxes or even immigration, but we're disagreeing about a fundamental worldview and about identity." He also noted the outlet that he had heard that some people who will gather with their families for the holiday are agreeing beforehand not to talk about politics during their time together. The survey was conducted among a representative sample of 5,772 adults, so this is a pretty large survey. And again, this should come as no surprise. The left wants to be surrounded by fellow leftists. It's the nature of it. That's how it is. Because they don't, and it's why so often it resorts to name calling by the left, because they don't really want to defend their position. They just believe that you have to be in complete adherence with them because they're smarter than you, back to Ken's point, and you're the dumb one. So there's no way that they should have to listen to you or put up with you, that you should be listening to their every word. All right. Now we're going to take that break. Stay with us. We're running just a tad bit late. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselsen's hot tub. Hesselsen's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselsen's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselsen's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselsen's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
It's a new season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my number one goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. I'd say after the holidays. I'm not sure what their business hours are right now, but give them a call as soon as you possibly can for all your business and home security needs. We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live on this Christmas Eve. If you are just joining us, the breaking news this morning that Biden has commuted the death sentences of child killers and mass murderers 2 days before Christmas. Yes, 37 of the 40 men on federal death row have had their sentences commuted, but Ken has a very good point on this. We shouldn't say that Biden is commuting or pardoning anyone. We should tell them what is actually happening. Biden isn't reviewing any of the cases put in front of him. His handlers are putting the paperwork in front of him and telling him to sign it. I think the left's agenda is to make sure there is as much division, anarchy, and violence in America, so they can say, see what Trump presidency brought you. Yeah, that is a good point, Ken, because we're seeing that with some of the decisions that they've made, that it's really to hinder Trump. It's to, and then of course you hear that idea that the economy is actually booming. I know you can't see it quite yet, but Trump is inheriting this great economy. So they're already laying the groundwork to take credit for his great economy. It happened with Obama. It happens with every Democrat president. That on the way out the door, boy, things are really on the upswing. So Trump's going to take complete credit for that when it's quite the opposite. They're preparing for Trump's good economy like we saw last time. And they want to be able to take credit for it and say, see, Biden actually really did that. You can see the lectures from the left on that already. But speaking of that, kind of piggybacking off what Ken says there about the division, anarchy, and violence in America, Politico published an opinion piece yesterday from a former attorney of Bill Clinton and Brett Kavanaugh accuser, pleading with government employees to keep their jobs to fight the incoming Trump administration. So don't quit your jobs no matter what Doge and Musk propose. Stay in there and try to gum up the works behind the scenes. So remember when they laugh at you about alleged deep state or alleged swamp? This Politico admits that is exactly the case, that nameless, faceless bureaucrats that you did not vote for can hinder and try to disrupt the Trump administration. Max Stier, the president and CEO of civil service-focused nonprofit Partnership for Public Service, put up the piece titled, Dear Federal Workers, Don't Quit. Quote, over the next few weeks, U.S. civil servants will spend the holidays wrestling with a tough choice. Stay in your jobs and work for a president who openly disdains you and might try to fire you, or quit. Now, first of all, I don't think they're really losing a lot of sleep over this, and I'll tell you why. They've got cushy jobs. They're not necessarily thinking about quitting because Trump won. Ride it out, get that paycheck is most likely what their thought is. And then if Doge comes in and cleans house, so be it. But this idea that they got to quit their job over some moral standard. So Stier said, I have already heard from many of you who would rather try your luck on the job market than wait for President-elect Donald Trump's promised purge. Yeah, good luck on the job market. Wait till you see they won't let you work from home. Wait till they see that you're not going to have all those cushy benefits and all that time away from the office. Going on to lament how Trump will not make it easy for government bureaucrats, like that's a bad thing. That's why he was voted in. will not make it easy for government bureaucrats to do their jobs by slashing their vital roles. He then argued that they must weather the storm. So think of that. Oh my gosh, this country would fall apart if it weren't for these bureaucrats and doing their tireless work and being the lifeblood of our democracy. Yes, I'm not making that up. He said that. If you head for the exits now, every American will suffer, concluding that unelected federal workers are the lifeblood of our democracy. So bureaucrats, according to Mr. Steyer, are the lifeblood of our democracy. So there you are, urging federal workers to resist and to fight from inside the administration. But again, there's no deep state, there's no swamp. They just laugh at you. The bureaucrats don't have that kind of power. The nameless, faceless bureaucrats that you did not vote for should be affecting and resisting and trying to gum up the works for the man that you did overwhelmingly reject. But that's another person, back to Ken's point, back to what we've been talking about all morning long, that thinks they're smarter than everyone else. And this is one way that he sees to hurt the Trump administration. I do have a couple things here about Hochul that we might get to. I don't know. And the drone thing, we'll get to it. There's a lot about Biden and Trump as well. We're going to be talking about it. I did see, though, there's as of January 1st here in New York, there's a few things that take effect. New York's minimum wage is rising to $16.50 downstate and $15.50 upstate. So, yes, as of January 1st in our area, minimum wage will be $15.50. Also in New York, stretch limos in New York are bound by new safety regulations. You also have a $35,000 outside pay cap for New York state lawmakers. State lawmakers gave themselves 29% raises at the end of 2020, hiking their pay to $142,000 a year, folks. But with those new salaries, the highest of all state legislatures in the U.S., came a new condition. New York's 63 senators and 150 assembly members could no longer earn more than $35,000 in private sector employment while on the state payroll. Why? Well, $142,000 a year, maybe not take that part-time job. And finally, even year elections for New York counties and town offices. I think this is horrible. Right now, it is in the Court of Appeals. It was blocked, but now the Hochul administration continuing to fight it. Listen, the problem I have with even years, it would be basically all elections would be even years. Okay, so let's say you're running for town council, which is such a stretch because no one is running for town council or city council. They can't find anybody to take those positions. But let's say you are running and you have an opponent. How do you get any attention in an already difficult media market when you have assembly races, congressional races, perhaps presidential races? How do you get, number one, you can't afford the ads because everybody else buying them. Number two, you're not going to get the interviews and the debates and things like that in the past would have got attention. So I think that's a disastrous decision at a time when it's already a struggle to get people to run for elected office. So those are a couple quick New York State things. And we're also going to talk about quite a few things about the Democrat Party and Donald Trump if we have an opportunity. That's coming up in the next hour. Whew. I feel like we covered a lot today. And it's only 1 hour in. Yes, we are live. Tomorrow we are rebroadcasting the Salvation Army Telethon just for fun because it's a very Christmassy themed show. Then on Christmas morning, when you get up, turn out Frankly Speaking because we've got all that great music by the Crystal Chords, the ladies quartets, also Doc Possum sending us some rockin' tunes. So it's music from not just this year's telethon, but also last year's. We put together for kind of a Christmas special that I know you'll enjoy. I enjoy putting it together and listening to all those great songs again because the Crystal Chords and all those various outlets of other groups that come from the Crystal Chords, they did such an amazing job and gave us some songs we hadn't heard in quite some time. So that'll be on Christmas. Then we are back. We're off the day after Christmas. Then Frankly Speaking is back live on Friday morning. We have special guests. We'll have a lot of fun, just like we're having fun on this morning's edition. All right, when we come back, a quick overview on something about Governor Hochul. If you want to talk about the drone drama, we can. We may just quickly, and then we're going to go to a couple different pieces about Joe Biden and how he's been president in name only since he was inaugurated, knowing that the White House knew about his mental decline day one. We learned that from the Wall Street Journal. Of course, they report on it now when it doesn't matter. so many of them, even Chris Staliza is saying, I should have, from CNN, very far leftist, saying I should have reported on it more. I should have done more. They knew. They kept it quiet for 3.5 years and propped him up and were even willing to prop him up for re-election if he would have stayed in. You don't think for a moment he wouldn't have still been the greatest, strongest presidential candidate in history if he would have ran? That's what they would have said. Because remember, just a few more months ago, he was George Washington. He should be on Mount Rushmore, consequential, the most consequential president in our lifetime, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll talk about that as well. Stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Frankly Speaking, Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, it's haunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
The best 2 hours of NFL coverage, starting with Fox NFL Kickoff at 11.
This is great TV.
It is caught! Then at noon, take it to the next level on Fox NFL Sunday.
Number 2 of Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. As we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Acom. If you are just joining us this morning, first of all, thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. But President Biden early this morning commuted the sentences of 37 of 40 men on federal death row. A list that includes at the very least, 5 child killers and several mass murderers in a stunning act of clemency just 2 days before Christmas. That is to lessen or dull the media impact because, let's face it, after today, there will not be much coverage of this because there isn't much to cover. That the news is very often fill-in hosts and anchors at that point, or rebroadcasts or special Christmas broadcasts. So this is really probably a one-day media story, and that's exactly why they did it. But again, we keep talking about the fact, think of those families that have been, the loved ones who have been through so much of the victims. To think about that every single day. And then to have their holidays ruined and permanently ruined. I mean, that'll be something that's always in the back of your mind come Christmas time, that Biden let those killers escape the death penalty and spend their life in prison without parole. And this is a comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. It takes years to actually carry out the death penalty because of the lawyers delaying the punishment. What are all the lawyers going to do now that Joe commuted their sentences? What a job creator Joe is. Maybe Trump will double dog dare to touch his tongue on the flagpole. Very, very timely there with a Christmas story. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's shocking. Now, keep in mind, when you have Biden commuting the sentences of 37 federal death row inmates, now this is not a pardon. Keep in mind, it is he's commuting the sentences, meaning that they're no longer on death row because he doesn't want Trump to execute them. So now they're in prison with life without parole. That was like a Merle Haggard song. This is after we just went through the largest single-day grant of clemency in American history. But to that viewer's point, to a couple viewers' points, this isn't necessarily Biden, though he did ultimately sign off on it, so it's his doing. But this is his radicalized advisors that we've talked about so frequently that are putting these radical priorities in front of his desk, and because of his mental acuity, he's just signing off on it. We're going to talk about that mental acuity in just a moment. But humor me here for a moment. This came out over the weekend. I thought it was an important message. Well over a year out from her next election, Governor Kathy Hochul is looking desperate and hapless. The latest sign, she sent in another 250 National Guard to help keep the subway safe for Christmas shopping season and maybe beyond. And you saw that migrant who lit a subway passenger on fire. That woman ultimately died. And to show you how out of touch and really just how Governor Hochul doesn't get it, she received criticism for later in that day taking a selfie on the subway and saying how safe it was. That's after the New York Police Department arrested a migrant who allegedly set a woman on fire on the subway train and watched her burn to death. A migrant from Guatemala was arrested in connection to the heinous death of a woman who was lit on fire and burned to death on a subway train in Brooklyn on early Sunday morning. Now, continuing with Hochul, so she sends the National Guard. Yet the guardsmen legally can't do most law enforcement, just check bags. They're not getting that raving madman off the platform, sorry. But the 1,000 total guard help provide a sense of security, the governor insists. Well, Merry Christmas. At least that's not as insulting as her claim that she's saving us money by imposing congestion pricing tolls of only $9 instead of the original $15. Now, this, of course, coming from the New York Post editorial board, so it's city-centric, but it's important because you got a year out from Hochul's re-election campaign. From her next election, I should say. Well over a year out from her next election. She is not ready for prime time. You can tell with her speeches, with some of the decisions she made. She wants to be a kingmaker, a power broker like Governor Cuomo was, and she just doesn't have it. Now, whether or not you think that about Governor Cuomo, I'm just stating that's what she wants to be. She wants to have the press all around her, and she just doesn't have it. To show you that she doesn't have it, it should have been a major story that she called Republican voters anti-American, anti-women, because that was coming off the heels of Biden calling Trump supporters garbage and all of this, okay? So it should have got national attention, but she's so irrelevant that it did not receive that attention. You can say, well, that's just the bias wanting to protect her. I just don't think she's relevant. I don't think that really even mattered to her, because who's really deciding who to vote for because of what Governor Hochul says? But continuing with what Hochul, about the hapless Hochul ahead of the 2026. Yes, she's not up again until 2026, had to say. Arguably worse than the congestion pricing are her lame $500 inflation reduction refund checks, which so far is only a $3 billion proposal for the next state budget, which is still months off. So when they push this as if you should be waiting by your mailbox, don't hold your breath quite yet. Yet she's busy posturing about it nonetheless, with recent trips to Co-op City in the Bronx, the Queens Mall, and an upstate supermarket for photo ops touting her giveaway, which is only giving us a taste of our own cash back and doesn't even cover a third of the hit of the congestion toll. Forget the congestion toll for a moment. Listen, $500, I'd rather have it than the state wasting it, don't get me wrong. But $500 at the end of the day, I mean, that's sadly, 4 bags of groceries if you're lucky. Fact is, the governor's already facing mounting 2026 challenges from, in the Democrat Party, Representative Richie Torres, and on the Republican side, Mike Lawler. Even Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado, her chosen number 2, is busy raising his own profile with an eye on some higher office, whatever that may be. Sadly, lame gimmicks aren't the only way the ever-cautious governor is trying to bolster her position. She's also retreating from common sense reforms. To curry favor with suburban voters and teachers' unions, Hochul has abandoned her call to cut funding to shrinking school districts. Even as Rockefeller Institute report that she commissioned flagged the outrageous unjust waste. Suddenly, Hochul's okay with the hold harmless provision that obliges Albany to fund ghost kids, that is, to keep sending cash even to rich districts where enrollment is dropping, and so maintain full employment for teachers and administrators. Again, it's nearly 2 years out from the next gubernatorial election, yet Hochul is already flailing. The question's starting to look less like whether she has any hope of holding on and more like how much damage she will do in the rest of her tenure. Interesting. Yes, I think a Democrat challenger could defeat her. She does not have the number. I mean, look, Lee Zeldin, as a Republican, came within sniffing distance of beating her. So I think with a tough campaign, I don't know if Mike Lawler is the one to do it, but he's getting his name out there now. He's more of a moderate Republican, but a moderate Republican as governor of New York State would still be better than the far left governors that we've had. Okay. You know, we were talking about bureaucrats. Before we talk about Biden, we're starting the top of the second hour, frankly speaking, off with some just different things I can't really segue together. But Victor Davis Hanson has a good point about these drones. And he says it's the last straw. We're fed up with government gaslighting us. New Jersey is now subject to nonstop and often sensational civilian reports of swarms of nocturnal drones crossing city skies and violating the airspaces of airports and military bases. Terrified thousands demand to know what those drones are doing and to whom they belong. In response, the Biden administration has initially kept mum, and you have many saying, oh, nothing to worry about, nothing to see here. You know, you're probably just seeing stars. And then they show you the video and you go, wait, that's supposed to be stars? Then, under mounting public pressure, it assured, meaning the Biden administration, that assured the public to be calm, given that most of the drones were likely launched by hobbyists and private citizens. When that narrative failed to convince many, spokespeople pivoted to claims of mass hysteria and mistaken identity. Amateur sightseers, they inferred, were subject to panic and hallucinations, supposedly wrongly confusing normal civilian and airline planes with drones. Well, perhaps. But as the sightings continued, more government narratives followed that the drones were unidentified, but assuredly still harmless, and certainly not foreign operated. And yet, the sightings continued. And the public's initial curiosity soon turned to fear and finally to anger at their government's silence, subsequent gaslighting, and finally, mendacity. In its characteristic stonewalling, the Biden administration has only fueled speculations and occasional conspiracy theories when it could have at least reviewed logical theories and welcomed legitimate questions. Is a controversial government agency, perhaps the CIA or the EPA, surveilling installation areas or people that would either be too embarrassing to be revealed or otherwise might set off panic? You know, some have suggested, I know that they're searching for nuclear weapons perhaps. Some have suggested that it was actually the Pentagon or the CIA or EPA or somebody testing new equipment and they got caught red-handed and they're too embarrassed to admit that it was them. And for the public good or consistent with this administration's weaponization of government. Or are these drones the work of foreign intelligence in the mode of the 2023 Chinese spy balloon? A government that long ago lost all credibility could not reassure the people of the truth even if it wished to. For nearly 4 years, Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas assured the American people almost weekly that the border is secure, even as a reported 12 million illegal entrants easily crossed in. Karine Jean-Pierre asserted weekly that Biden was vigorous, in full control of his faculties, and always sharp, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. In fact, she knew that the American people grimaced as their president slurred his speech, suddenly went mute, tripped, fell, and wandered aimlessly. In late January and early February of 2023, a huge Chinese surveillance balloon traversed across the United States. Public outrage grew as the administration changed its excuses by the day. It variously assured the public that it was a mere weather balloon, that it could be too dangerous to shoot it down, that it did not transmit any of its photographic capabilities to China, and its trajectory did not cross key military installations. All those excuses were either half-truths, half-lies, or untrue. In late July and early August of 2021, it became clear that the Biden administration planned a massive, previously unannounced and abrupt withdrawal from Afghanistan. Rumors circulated that Biden rushed to claim that he alone had ended the messy Afghan war misadventure after 20 years and would celebrate his triumph on the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. To calm public fears, our top generals assured us that the Taliban was at bay, Kabul was secured, and the withdrawal would be orderly. But within hours, sheer bedlam broke out. 13 service members were murdered by terrorists. There were no audits or background checks on Afghans who were flown into America. Meanwhile, loyal Afghan interpreters and American contractors were ignored and left behind to fend off the triumphant terrorists on their own. Even as Americans watched the disaster on their screens, the Biden administration boasted of a supposedly heroic and Herculean effort to evacuate tens of thousands, and what the public saw instead is the greatest U.S. military humiliation of the last half century. So the American public understandably no longer believes much of anything the waning Biden administration says. Not after its other chronic lies about denying the role of the Wuhan lab in the COVID-19 pandemic, only moderate inflation, and assurances that Hunter Biden would never be pardoned by his father. This administration knows that anytime there's a scandal or embarrassment on Team Biden's watch, it wheels out megaphones that ignore inquiries, gaslight critics by claiming they are hallucinating, defames them as conspiratorial, or simply flat out lies and stonewalls. No one yet knows what, if anything, these drones are, what they are doing in our skies, and much less whether they pose any threat at all. But almost everyone assumes that Biden administration knows, and yet expects that it will likely deceive us that it doesn't. That's from Victor Davis Hanson. I thought that was a really important piece, even though I'm a little bit weary of bringing up the drones over and over again. Oh, by the way, though, the Democrat and Chronicle gave you a who, what, when, where, and why of the drones. And the question is asked, can you shoot down a drone in New York? What to know before you fire? Taking a shot at a hovering drone is illegal in New York. You guessed it. The FAA considers it shooting at an aircraft, which is a federal crime. They give examples of this. Are drones legal in New York? Yes, they are. We know that. Can I fly my drone around my neighborhood in New York? If you're flying a drone for recreational purposes, keep these basic rules in mind. Don't let your drone fly out of sight. Do not interfere with other aircrafts. Keep your drone flying at or below 400 feet. And don't fly your drone in a way that would endanger you or someone else. So, the New York State Police said they've received numerous reports of drone sighting over the past 24 hours, and they're investigating them. We have no evidence at this point that there are any reported sightings that they pose a public safety threat. So you're not legally allowed to shoot them down. That I think is helpful for many of you in this audience to know that. If you are just joining us, the breaking news this morning, Biden has commuted the sentences of 37 of 40 men on federal death row, so nearly the whole federal death row. A list that includes at least 5 child killers and several mass murderers right before Christmas. 2 days before Christmas, you pray for those families that have to relive this tragedy every day of their life, the victims' families and friends and loved ones. But now to do this at Christmas time to make Christmas even more difficult for them. While, like we see here in New York, unfortunately, but what Biden's doing is giving the Christmas gift to the mass murderers and the child killers before Christmas. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Oh, better tasting is better for the planet.
That's great, sir. Can I take your order?
Oh, number 3.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install our drinking water and softening systems, we're thinking about filtering contaminants and the minerals that make water hard. So you can just think about softer, cleaner, better tasting water. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here. Wait. What? I can't drive. Why? My. Oh.
Football Show breaks down all things NFL. GMFB Overtime.
Check out top highlights, player interviews, special guests, and everything in between. 5 days a week.
GMFB Overtime. It's football for everyone.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, taunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them for all your business and home security needs. Welcome to the Christmas Eve, or welcome back to the Christmas Eve edition of Frankly Speaking. Listen to this nice comment that we received. Keep up the great work, Frank. Well, thank you. Wishing a Merry Christmas to you and all your listeners. None other than Mayor John Buckley, Hornell Mayor John Buckley, friend of Frankly Speaking, who's been on the show numerous times. Does a great job. And I heard that their Christmas in the Park was a blast in Hornell. So thank you, Mayor Buckley. Merry Christmas to you and your family and all the people of Hornell. All right. So we were talking about Joe Biden and the mental decline that we learned about. I think it was on Friday's show was when we first reported on it, which is the Wall Street Journal's expose. Now that the election's over, because keep in mind, even though Joe Biden wasn't running, so you could say, well, why didn't they do this back when he dropped out? Well, because this is harmful to Harris, too. This is harmful to the Pelosi's and the Schumers and the media that had propped him up for 3.5 years, like we said on this program. And we're not the only one to say that. I'm not patting myself on the back. But we know that he was propped up for 3.5 years. And now they have the audacity to say, well, he should have got out earlier. You were the one, and I think this term is overused, but you were the one gaslighting us to believe that never mind what we're seeing with our own eyes, that Biden is very mentally sharp. Watch that video. It was on foxnews.com this morning with Joe Scarborough and so many others going on and lecturing you for having the audacity to challenge or question President Biden's mental acuity. He's the sharpest he's ever been. He's good old Joe. He's smart. He's on point, sharp as a tack. They lied to you. And again, the term is very often overused and misused, but they gaslighted you for 3.5 years. And that is, I think, one of the biggest scandals in presidential history. And I hope that there's more done about it. Not just this Wall Street Journal expose, because they waited. They had no impact on the election, anything like that. But we knew. And that's what Michael Goodwin said at the New York Post. There are media bombshells, and then there is the Wall Street Journal report that Joe Biden is so mentally diminished that aides have isolated him to hide his decline from the public and even key members of his own administration. Cabinet secretaries and congressional leaders find it next to impossible to get in-person meetings, and full cabinet gatherings are very rare. As the years have passed, phone calls with Biden grew increasingly unusual, with most communications made through intermediaries. And this goes back to our point that we've been making all morning long, same with him commuting, if you are just joining us this morning, commuting the death sentences of child killers and mass murderers. This was done by his aides and his assistants. This is not him going through and reading everybody's case. But again, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's what's done. And 37 of 40 men on federal death row have had their sentences commuted so that they will serve life in prison without a possibility of parole as compared to the death sentence. But I'll continue. There were limits over who Biden spoke with, limits on what they said to him, and limits around the sources of information he consumed. A team of journal reporters wrote, yes, the Wall Street Journal, none of this done when it mattered most. Because remember, even back during the election of 2020, we were told, no, he's sharp as a tack. What are you talking about that he's having problems? Anyone paying even cursory attention knows Biden is not all there and hasn't been for years. All along, his rare public appearances were usually punctuated by stumbles, gibberish, and a dazed and confused look. To hide his infirmities, every move and word were scripted, which explains why he gave far fewer interviews and press conferences than his predecessors. When he did appear in public, he usually carried cheat sheets with stage directions and talking points. Remember, even at times, reading that from the teleprompter. He sometimes revealed the short leash he was on by saying, I'll get in trouble if he answers any questions. Aides also had to retract some wild statements he made, including one where he suggested regime change was U.S. policy in Russia. Last June, weeks after the Journal reported that people who had seen Biden said he was slipping. The whole world saw what a mess he was at the debate. The president had trouble forming sentences and sometimes trailed off into incoherence. That performance led to his withdrawal from the presidential campaign, but White House aides have continued to insist he is fine and able to carry out his presidential duties. They stuck to that story again last week. They are lying, and everybody in Washington has to know it, including, this is an important point, including all of those in the media that were fully aware of this. So why hasn't the rest of the press corps, especially the outlets with scores of reporters and editors in the Capitol, ever pursued this critical story? It was a scoop waiting to be told, and not just for domestic audiences. And yes, I would ask, and you know the answer to this, so it's rhetorical. What if this were Trump? Because Trump makes, like to that viewer's point from Friday's show, every move he made was scrutinized. Remember when they went on long tangents about that time he walked up a ramp slow because it was wet and he was in dress shoes? Or how about when they demanded he take a cognitive test? He did, passed with flying colors. Never demanding the same thing from Biden because they knew the answer. But if it were a Republican, they would have attacked him until probably not Trump, but would have resigned or would have stepped down. In this case, never mind what you're seeing with your eyes, never mind what you're witnessing. He's fine, he's healthier as a mule. But remember, every move of Trump was scrutinized. So it goes to show you just another prime example of that bias that we have to confront over and over again by the mainstream media. Because America's commander-in-chief is considered to be the leader of the free world, a president who is unable to carry out his duties is a global danger. Few people believe it's a coincidence that the current crises, like Ukraine, Hamas and Israel, et cetera, are happening on Biden's watch. So we're nearing, or there are concerns of a World War III. So why has his cognitive decline not gotten the wide scrutiny he deserves? And why is there no reporting even now about who is actually running the government? The answer to both questions are as obvious as they are infuriating. The legacy media outlets and their activist offshoots don't want the American people to know the truth. They're not covering the White House. They're covering up for the White House. Democrats with press passes, that's what they are. And they put their partisan allegiance ahead of their professional responsibility and their country. By not even trying to pierce the fog spun by Biden's enablers, the Washington media became his co-conspirators. And keep that in mind next time they lecture you about being the last line of defense and freedom, and that they speak truth to power. Remember that when they were completely silent on the leader of the free world and his cognitive decline. So when they lecture you about how important the media is and how dare Trump attack the media, that's a threat to democracy. No, a threat to democracy is that you allowed President Biden to go scot-free and not learn anything about his mental decline when he is the leader of the free world. And that's why we're on the brink of World War III. And that is the media's responsibility just as much as it is the people behind the scenes in the White House pulling the strings. So who's the real threat to democracy and threat to this country? I know that when Trump says that the media is the threat to our country, they are in a tizzy. But what other way can you look at this? Putting us in this harm's way, because listen, they can say never mind what you're seeing, and they can say that till they're blue in the face. But you don't think foreign adversaries are watching it and knowing exactly what about the cognitive decline, no matter what MSNBC tells them? Unfortunately, even calling the media co-conspirators doesn't fully capture the dirty game they are playing. To understand the complete picture, says Michael Goodwin, and it helps to see the refusal to report Biden's decline is one part of a set of bookends. The other part is the nasty, distorted coverage of Trump. There, the media have always been full of sound and fury, determined since 2016 to keep him out of the White House. They failed then, but tortured every word he said and every action he took during the first term. They pushed for his impeachment and conviction over the Russia hoax and other drummed-up scandals. Their distorted coverage played a major role in the 2020 election. They weren't fairly and accurately holding Trump accountable. They were using all their power and tools to swing the election to Biden. They had a major assist from the FBI and big tech companies, and you had the censorship of the Hunter Biden story, et cetera, et cetera. It says here, and with Trump set to enter the Oval Office again, the war against him is already raging. Fresh off a campaign where they supported the flimsy criminal cases brought by Biden's Department of Justice and state prosecutors in New York and Georgia, and where they did all they could to push Kamala Harris into the Oval Office, the media coverage of Trump's second term is shaping up to be as nasty and negative as the first. Everything he says and does is viewed through the claims that his motives are selfish or even diabolical. They preen endlessly about what they claim is his plan for revenge and retribution, describe him, as vindictive and warn that he plans an assault on the First Amendment. They've been saying that from the beginning. That's why, since they couldn't find this actual Trump enemies list, they created something to confuse you almost in a way to think there is an enemies list, and that is the pre-pardons, the preemptive pardons that they want Biden to release. A constant thread is to claim to have insight into his mind, as if the media are trained psychiatrists making a diagnosis. Although public resistance to Trump is not nearly as feverish as it was before his first term, and the Democrats' slur that he is the new Hitler have disappeared, there is no sign that the media intends to cover him more fairly. In fact, the fear-mongering tone employed against Trump remains remarkable compared with the soft glove, see no evil coverage of Biden. The world is in flames. The nation is angrily divided. The failing president and the daffy vice president are in hiding, and yet Trump is the problem. The distortion reflects prejudice and ignorance. The far-left orientation of most journalists and their outlets echo the radical indoctrination dished out in elite colleges. Editors used to provide a counterweight by having a knowledge of history and by insisting on standards of fairness. But those standards were abandoned soon after Trump entered in 2016. And if you recall at the time, the New York Times said they were abandoning that. They came right out and said, we are abandoning a standard of fairness because we got to see Trump defeated. The media landscape now is dominated by leftist advocacy, while opposing views, whether conservative or centrist, are considered hearsay. One effect is a lack of interest in Biden's mental decline and in learning who is filling the vacuum in the Oval Office. Another effect is a requirement to hate Trump and his supporters. So here we go again, because many people infected with both traits masquerade as journalists. We got more on this. This is coming from Michael Goodwin specifically, but we got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
When you think boots, think Hesselsen's. Hesselsen's has the largest selection of work boots in the area. Composite and steel-toe boots, Met-Guard boots, soft-toe boots, and hikers, duty and western boots, all in one location. Hesselsen's at Meyer Heights. Hesselsen's has men's and ladies' boots in all sizes and widths. Choose from the largest names in the industry: Danner, Carolina, Timberland Pro, Keen Utility, Thorogood, Area, and Georgia, to name just a few. Hesselsen's has been locally owned and operated since 1955, so when you think local service and great selection, think Hesselsen's. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
This is Bob. He's gambling by giving Nana's precious snow globe to his niece. Bob understands how to gift responsibly. He knows some gambles are too risky, like gifting a lottery ticket to anyone under 18. Studies show the earlier a person begins, the more likely they are to develop a gambling problem later in life. Better grab the glue, Bob. We all take risks in life. Just gift responsibly. To learn how you can gift responsibly this holiday season, visit playresponsiblyny.com.
In the last 18 months, Bath Planet has given away 3 dream bathroom makeovers, and now it's your turn. It's our absolute pleasure to announce Dream Bathroom Giveaway 4. On March 3rd, one local family is going to get a dream bathroom makeover for free. Whether you want a tub to lounge or a walk-in shower for accessibility, Bath Planet is excited to give away our 4th free bathroom makeover. Enter now by scanning the QR code or stopping by either of our 2 locations.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, taunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them for all of your business and home security needs. Thank you for joining us as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on historic Marcus Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. What a relief it'll be to have the Democrats out of power. Nothing they do seems to be very well thought out, even with the commuting of the death penalty. They don't even make it apply across the board. It appears that some still deserve the death penalty. That is an interesting bit of hypocrisy, but they knew, listen, they already knew that this was going to get a lot of negative reaction. That's why they released the news when they did, that it'll be buried after today because there's not a lot of people waking up on Christmas morning or even Christmas Eve to tune on the news specifically. That's why we're playing Christmas music the next 2 days on Frankly Speaking, because, you know, you want to spend time with your family and friends and, you know, kind of just relax in the Christmas spirit, if you will. So they know this is going to be buried and almost forgotten. But they knew that if they had those other three taken off the death penalty, or death row, I should say, that backlash would have continued well through the holidays. We learned that the 3 inmates not included in this commuting of the sentences. And by the way, if you're just joining us, the breaking news this morning is that Biden commuted the sentences of 37 federal death row inmates. So that means there's 3, because there's 40 people on death row. So 37 are no longer with this decision by Biden, well, his handlers. 37 death row inmates are no longer on death row. They're not going to see the death penalty. They are going to now be considered sentenced to life without parole. Okay. But those 3 people that are not on that list, the 3 men that are also on death row, that remain on death row, are Robert Bowers, who was responsible for the mass shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue in 2018. Dylan Roof, a white supremacist who killed 9 black parishioners at Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. And that was back in 2015. And Diskov Sarnev, who worked with his now dead brother to perpetrate the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing that killed 3 people and injured hundreds. So those are the 3 that apparently still deserve to die, and I would agree. Though if you look at the stories of the other 37 that are no longer on death row, there's a lot that deserve the death penalty. Child killers, mass murderers, as I keep mentioning, some of the most heinous, obviously most violent of murderers, 9 of whom were found too dangerous to even live after butchering fellow inmates. At least 5 were child killers, several were mass murderers, and Biden said, but make no mistake, I condemn these murderers. Grieve for their families of their despicable acts, and grieve for the victims of their despicable acts, and ache for all the families who have suffered unimaginable and irreparable loss. Well, if you ache for them, why do you do this right before Christmas, President Biden? So the families who have to live with these thoughts and nightmares every single day, that they miss their loved ones, that were victims of these heinous murderers, of these heinous crimes. Now, during the holiday season, it's a fresh wound. Now, it's always something I'm sure that's in the back of their mind or always something they think about. But now, 2 days before Christmas, they have to relive the nightmare and now realize that that person who took their loved one's life away will now get to serve out the remainder of their life in prison. So their loved one doesn't have that same gift to live out their whole entire life because their life was taken away by these people on death row. But those death row inmates now having the gift of life, being able to stay alive, live out their whole life before dying in prison. And if you look at Sarnov, or however you say his last name, the Boston bomber, and that Dylan Roof, you've got young people there. You've got them draining the tax-paying dollars, too, if you want to look at that sense from a fiscal standpoint, for how many more decades? All because Biden doesn't want Trump to execute these mass murderers, child killers. Obviously, there's a lot of sexual assault in these people's stories. I don't want to go through the graphic details. The New York Post and Fox News did a great job. Because it is such breaking news, I'm sure there'll be more information about these 37 people that were on death row, no longer on death row because Biden commuted their sentences. They did a pretty good story of telling you exactly who these despicable men were and are, and will get to live out their lives. So yes, it is very frustrating. Miranda Devine, just piggybacking off of what we were saying with Michael Goodwin, says that Joe Biden has been president in name only since he was inaugurated. As we talk about the withdrawal from Afghanistan, that disaster, and he even refused to acknowledge responsibility. Now we learn that Joe Biden forced grieving military families to wait for hours on the tarmac at Dover Air Force Base while he took a nap on Air Force One. We already knew that he had continually checked his watch and talked about himself when he met the relatives of 13 military members killed by a suicide bomber during the chaotic evacuation from Kabul in August of 2021. But this new report adds an extra layer of callousness. Biden has long been renowned for being late to everything, well before the onset of his cognitive decline. World leaders at the G20 summit last month finally tired of waiting and took their group photo without him. If anything said lame duck, it was a disregard for the so-called leader of the free world. But Biden has been a lame duck his entire presidency. The thoughtless 3-hour delay, did you know about this, of the dignified transfer ceremony at Dover is simply emblematic of his reign. So after the Afghanistan withdrawal, we know that there's a lot of criticism, and many of the families that lost loved ones in that withdrawal say that he was callous. He only spoke about himself, checking his watch the whole time. Now we learn that they had to wait 3 hours because he was taking a nap. Now that he is no longer powerful, his bumbling, stumbling, mumbling senility is suddenly newsworthy. No matter that this newspaper consistently charted his decline in real time, meaning the New York Post, only to be accused by the White House of ageism and cheap fakes, now we are supposed to be shocked by the bombshell that the White House was hiding his problems. The worst scandal in White House history is the worst held secret in Washington. And they go through and talk about the 9 cabinet meetings in 4 years compared to Trump's 25, talks about how he has bad days, better days. He has been president in name only since the day he was inaugurated. The Constitution has built-in mechanisms to deal with such a threat, the 25th Amendment. But the problem is it needs people of good character to activate it. Those around Biden, including his ambitious wife, were having too much fun abusing the powers of his presidency. And don't think for a moment a lot of these decisions that were made this whole time were by Dr. Jill. They justified their malfeasance by giving the president free rein on his good days. Considering Biden in his prime was an incompetent blowhard, dire consequences for America and the world were inevitable. Yes, the media and the Democrats were complicit in hiding Biden's obvious cognitive decline, but we mustn't allow his latest approved narrative to be the mechanism that lets him off the hook. He was in no shape to run for president back in 2020 is the point that Devine makes, and I think she's exactly right. But vanity, delusional self-belief, and a family propelled him, and this egomaniac family propelled him to center stage, and a corrupt party rigged a basement campaign to make him president. He was clearly addled on the campaign trail in January of 2020 in Iowa and New Hampshire, perpetually late and having to read his stump speeches from a teleprompter. But he had enough good days to know that what he was doing when he walked into the Oval Office and issued the orders to unwind Trump-era border protections, abandon Bagram Air Base, defy the Supreme Court, propel inflation, weaken the military, project weakness to our adversaries, pressure the DOJ to protect his wayward son, and use lawfare to come after his political opponents, all while making divisive speeches attacking half the country. That was pure Biden, the same guy who played an integral role in his family's influence peddling operation as vice president, who was also smart enough to stick one in the eye to coup plotters Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama when he anointed unelected Kamala Harris as his replacement. Now, in that same spirit of spite, he and his wife give Harris a cold shoulder. Yes, I think Miranda Devine and I are on the same page on this, and I knew there was somebody out there that had the same kind of belief as me, which was Biden one last opportunity to show that he still had power, that he could still stick it to the elites in his own party, who he always felt kind of underrated him. He came out and endorsed Harris. I don't think that was ever the plan, but once he did that, Nancy Pelosi and Schumer and others had to get on board. They couldn't say, no, we're going to have a primary. It would have been disastrous for them. That's why it goes back to Obama taking so long before he finally endorsed her. So he, one last kind of, what's the word I want to use? Well, like she said, stick it in the eye one last time, out the door saying, okay, Obama, Pelosi, you don't want me? See what you could do with Harris, the same person you've wanted off the ticket to try to make his ticket more popular for about a year now, who always said she was not that good. I mean, that was no secret. The Democrats always talked about how bad Harris would be as a presidential candidate, and did do in 2016. The electorate was cheated of the opportunity to reject Biden at the ballot box when he was swapped out at the last minute for Harris. But her defeat was his defeat. There's a growing mood to hold Harris and the rest of Biden's minders to account for the failures of his presidency. How that can be achieved is never articulated, but he can't hide behind his infirmity. He deserves most of the blame. In an interview last week with Midas Touch, the leftist Midas Touch, Biden responded with as much delusion as ever when asked how he wanted to be remembered. Quote, "I kept my word, that when I said I was going to do something, I did it. Don't fall for Joe's last con." Yeah, all you got to do is point to Hunter Biden. Is that a man of his word? But that man of his word commuted the death sentences of child killers and mass murderers 2 days before Christmas. That is the breaking story this morning. We're going to talk a little bit about the Democrat Party here. How late am I running? I'm running really late. Wow. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, a little bit about the Democrat Party. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
Y'all got a lot of stuff here in your water.
You're never gonna believe it, but this can filter up to 60 different contaminants from your water.
It's all about cleaner drinking water.
Dude, that's good water.
And that's good water.
Now that's good water.
That's good water, eh?
No matter where you live, there's a Culligan water expert nearby. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is history making.
Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them for all your business and home security needs. Oh yeah, it's a chilly morning out there as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. Comment from Ken. Did you listen to Trump talking about the Panama Canal? Yeah, I'll get to that in just a second, Ken. I remember when we transferred ownership, but never heard about the provisions that were in place with that transfer. So I did a little research and don't see the $1 sale referenced, but did see that part of the deal still involved the U.S. sending hundreds of millions of dollars to Panama in subsidies. Panama charges the U.S. larger passage fees than other countries, and that China has land and port interests at either end. I think Trump has it right. We built it with American dollars and treasure, and they aren't treating us in a beneficial manner. So we should take it back before China completely controls it. Great point, Ken. If you had not heard about that, Donald Trump over the weekend tweeted, "The Panama Canal is considered a vital national asset for the United States due to its critical role to America's economy and national. A secure Panama Canal is crucial for U.S. commerce and rapid deployment of the Navy from the Atlantic to the Pacific and drastically cut shipping times to U.S. ports. The United States is the #1 user of the canal, with over 70% of all transit heading to or from U.S. ports. Considered one of the wonders of the modern world, the Panama Canal opened for business 110 years ago and was built at huge cost to the United States in lives and treasure. 38,000 American men died from infected mosquitoes in the jungles during construction." So in response, Jose Raul Molino said, "As president, I want to express clearly that every square meter of the Panama Canal and its adjacent zones belongs to Panama and will continue to do so. The sovereignty and independence of our country are not negotiable. The canal is not under direct or indirect control, neither by China, nor by the European community, nor by the United States, nor by any other power. As a Panamanian, I strongly reject any manifestation that distorts this reality. Panama respects other nations and demands respect." So, in typical Trump fashion, in response to that from the Panamanian president, Trump responded, quote, "We'll see about that." Now, in an earlier post in the day, Trump had said when President Jimmy Carter foolishly gave it away for $1 during his term in office, it was solely for Panama to manage, not China or anyone else. It is likewise not to give for Panama to charge the United States, its Navy, and corporations doing business within our country. Exorbitant prices and rates of passage, our Navy and commerce have been treated in a very unfair and injudicious way. The fees being charged by Panama are ridiculous, especially knowing the extraordinary generosity that has been bestowed to Panama by the U.S. This complete ripoff of our country will immediately stop. I like that, though. We'll see about that. All right. Hey, Fetterman. Do I have time? We're going to make time. Fetterman says Democrats need to chill out over every Trump move. Adds he's not rooting against the incoming president. This is Senator John Fetterman. And I mentioned last week there's this theory out there, this thought out there, that there's two Democrats. There's the AOC wing and there's the Fetterman wing. Fetterman said freaking out over a second Trump term was not the right approach and encouraged his party to pack a lunch and calm down when asked what he feared most after Inauguration Day. Interesting. Well, it's like I've been warning people, like, you got to chill out, like that constant, freak out. It's not helpful. Well, it's not healthy either. So, pack a lunch, pace yourself, because he hasn't even taken office yet. He then said he hopes Trump is a good president. I hope, because I'm not rooting against him. If you're rooting against the president, you're rooting against the nation. And I'm not ever going to be where I want a president to fail. Joe Manchin saying that the Democratic Party brand has become toxic. This was on CNN's Inside Politics. He said, "I'm not a Democrat in a form of what? What the Democrat Party has turned itself into on the national brand? Absolutely not. And they know that. They're all good people. They're all good people on both sides. The brand got so bad, the D brand has been so maligned from the standpoint of it's just toxic. And the D brand is basically this. I've told them. I said, first of all, as an American and as someone in the Senate, I'm going to take the constitutional oath, the Constitution that I take very, 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 very seriously. I'm going to help every human being pursue the pursuit of happiness, life in their life, pursuit of happiness. I don't care who they are. I don't care what color. I don't care about any of the things they love and what they do. That's you. And I'm going to make sure you have the opportunity and right to live your life. Just don't make your life, if it might be on the extremes or in the minority of a few, make me believe that's the norm, or make me and my family believe, or my children believe that this or that is the norm. No, I will protect you. Just don't try to mainstream it. And the Democrat Party, the Washington Democrats, have tried to mainstream the extreme. When we come back, I'm going to tell you what, of all people, Stephen A. Smith had to say about backing Vice President Harris. Again, if you are just joining us, Biden commuting the sentences of 37 of 40 men on federal death row. A list that includes at least 5 child killers and several mass murderers in a stunning act of clemency just 2 days before Christmas. Stay with us.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more. Call now, 844-617-0440.
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
Yo, camping buddy. Okay, you guys ready?
Dude, I thought you were driving.
I thought you were driving.
Oh, I never said I was driving.
I definitely can't drive.
If you're high, just don't drive. It's illegal everywhere. If you feel different, you
Thank you again to Boss Security for bringing us the beautiful roof cam. We got a nice comment from Ken as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. Ken says, Frank, thank you for hosting a political analyst show that allows the general public to voice their opinions on either side of the issues. Have a Merry Christmas. Well, thank you, Ken. Thank you for being such a vital and important part of the program, everybody who sends in. Thank you, Ken, and a Merry Christmas to you, and a Merry Christmas to everybody watching, and even those that don't watch. Merry Christmas. Shame on you, but Merry Christmas. Stephen A. Smith said, he said, I voted Democrat. And I got to tell you something right now. I don't like the fact that I did it. I don't like what I'm seeing. He was talking with Mark Levin. I don't want to hear about, we're about the law. Nobody's above the law. Nobody's above the law. But then you go out and you pardon your son and you try to blame everybody else for it. I don't want to hear about defund the police. I don't want to hear about, you know what? There should be open borders. I don't want to hear this stuff. And I don't think most Americans want to hear it. He says he's no longer interested in listening to a bunch of fear-mongering to tell us who we shouldn't vote for. Why don't you come up with a plan that tells us why we should vote for you? We're not about America only, but being about America and prioritizing what's going on in this nation with the desolate and the disenfranchised and everybody else in between, and looking out for the best interest of what it is for America. And that is not crime for an American politician or commander-in-chief or senator or congressional figure to have that mentality. If Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Byron Donalds, Marco Rubio, or a host of other Republican candidates coming down the pike, that's the kind of message that they're going to put forth. I'm down for it. I'm open-minded enough to make sure that they entertain that for a policy perspective. That's what I want for the American people. That's what I want for this nation. He conceded he could quite possibly see himself voting for Trump if the president-elect could run again. What concerned me about Donald Trump, and the reason I voted against him and voted for Harris, was because I felt that he would be divisive, that he would create chaos because he demands such a level of loyalty to him, and that would take priority over governing our nation. That was my concern. It can't be just that about loyalty to him. It's going to be to get the job done on behalf of what is in the best interest of the American people, as opposed to yourself, and not engaged in the kind of juvenile tendencies, tweeting all the time and going after people. You do things like that, and you show that if you're an adult in the room, I don't think anybody could dismiss Donald Trump at the particular moment in time. Interesting to see some people changing their tune after the election. That's why I brought it to you. There we go. Here's a comment from a viewer. I have to say I would be in full freak-out mode if Trump lost. I can't even imagine what a Harris-Walz win would have looked like. Well, luckily you do not have to worry about that. I don't know what today would look like. Yeah, especially when we're piggybacking off the heels of Biden pardoning commuting the sentences of 37 out of 40 death row inmates, meaning now those 37 are serving life without parole. But continuing with this viewer's message, wishing you a very Merry Christmas and happy, healthy, frankly speaking, 2025. Well, thank you very much. Very Merry Christmas to you, and a happy New Year and happy health to everyone in the audience in 2025. And we're going to be along for that ride in 2025. By the way, let's do our quick hits and then we'll say our goodbyes. Laura Trump withdraws her name for consideration of the Florida Senate seat. Disappointing. I wonder if that meant DeSantis signaled he wasn't going to put him in there. Or put her in there, excuse me. Trump wants to buy Greenland. He's mentioned it again. That was after claiming the U.S. could take back ownership of the Panama Canal because it's absolutely necessary. Oh, and the media narrative didn't play out where, if we keep saying that Elon Musk's the real president, Donald Trump's going to turn on Elon Musk. He hasn't. He said Elon Musk is doing an amazing job. And no, he's not taking the presidency. I like having smart people. You know, they're on a news kick. Russia, 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 Ukraine, 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 all the different hoaxes. The new one is President Trump has ceded the presidency to Elon Musk. No, that's not happening. But Elon's done an amazing job. Isn't it nice to have smart people that we can rely on? Don't we want that? He's done a great job. All right, we are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. This is our last live episode before, let's see, Friday. Friday we'll be back live. So I hope that you have a very Merry Christmas, that you have a fun, safe Christmas. Make sure you remember what it's all about. Take a little breather, time away from all the hectic nature of the time, and remember what the reason for the season, as they say. And I hope that you will join us on Friday, and I hope that you have an amazing, and thank you for all the great comments, not just about the topics of the day, but also just the great comments and wishing us all here a Merry Christmas. I really do appreciate it. So Merry Christmas to you and your loved ones, and we'll be back Friday morning with Frankly Speaking. I'd say I look forward to it already, but I got to enjoy Christmas too. But I do. I look forward to Friday already. Have a great Christmas, everyone.
Today's top story, increasing fuel costs continue to drive up inflation, making it harder to afford everything from food to home heating.
Here at Hustlesons, we know the only way to beat inflation is to fight inflation. So we're fighting back with zero interest financing and big cash rebates. Get a 4-person hot tub for your family for as little as $100 per month and pay zero interest. Or save up to $3,000 on a fabulous salt system hot tub. And of course, you will always get Hustlesons' unbelievable service. Don't let inflation fears kill your dreams. Fight back with Hustlesons. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hustlesons.